Hey everybody, it's Marlana here for, I won't necessarily say a brief Marlana moment, but this is community chat number 4, and today's date is December 18th, 2024. I did not get my Instagram going, but now I have. And I told you I like to have fun on Instagram, so I'm going to go ahead and kick this off with something quite hilarious, or at least it was to me. One of the things I have learned in this process, in this journey, sorry, I'm playing with my cell phone, y'all, is that you got to make yourself laugh. You got to make yourself have a good balance as you are maneuvering through never-ending crazy. Okay, so it's live. It's not a reel. But maybe, no, that's right. Okay, it's live. So anyways, you gotta have fun. And as we live in a now social media world for everything that we do, from personal to professional to whatever, you name it, Instagram has fun tools, fun filters. And I think, yeah, I'm probably having too much fun with them. But what I was gonna say is, I'm gonna start this in a moment. If you go back and watch the Instagram, it will all make sense. Otherwise, right now you're on Facebook. I think the StreamYard is streaming too. And you're like, what is she doing? Oh, I hope I didn't lose it. It was a really fun one. And it may have gone away. Because I was going to announce that, y'all, it's a dumpster fire. And I think it might have went away. See all my fun tools? Man, it was there. And now they've switched and done something else. Interesting. Okay. I am actually going to get to the point of the matter tonight. You know what? It's not a dumpster fire, but there is an aura all around me. I actually kind of like it. It looks weird. It'll look weird on Instagram, but let me go ahead and get this party started. Okay. 3, 2, 1. All right, now we are live on Instagram, and ooh, I hope that's not going to be too dark. Good evening again. This is another Marlana Moment, community chat number 4. And for those that wind up watching this on Instagram, I actually had this really cool filter that was like flames in the background. And I was going to say it's a dumpster fire. I had this whole perfect planned out 60-second portion of this live, and it went away. So now I have this, and it looks kind of interesting. I don't know if I'm going to keep it. Might look really weird if someone pops in on Instagram and is like, no, probably gonna lose that background. I will. But let's see. You know what? That's a bit much. I'll stick with this one. I'll stick with this one because it was another one where ultimately it's light shining bright. I normally have silver. I'm wearing gold tonight because as I'm thinking about light shining bright, we are dealing with and addressing a lot of darkness. And I want to say that, yes, as I am honored, I am humbled that so many of you feel like I'm this bright shining light and shedding light on what's going on within the system and what so many families are facing, so many of our children are facing. I also firmly believe that you all are shining bright, like all of these lights surrounding me, at least on Instagram. Now, for those of you watching it on YouTube or Facebook or wherever else my StreamYard is streaming right now, you might be thinking, what is she talking about? So if you follow me over to Instagram and you see this particular live, you'll see what I'm talking about. So either way, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna dive into it. Start off with the tone being light because y'all, I gotta be honest, what I'm going to work on trying to get through, and I gotta be honest, I'm gonna take this one step at a time, but what I'm gonna work on trying to get through is something that I actually said, not only to myself, but honestly, a promise that I made to God. Actually on the side of the road back in 2016, would have been, I want to say June 30th going into July 1st of 2016, when I was actually filing into the e-file Texas system. I was in Pennsylvania, a place called Wellsboro, Tioga County, for anyone that's familiar with that part of Pennsylvania. And I was actually there with a family from Arkansas that I had been really being cared for by and with my baby girl when we were forced to have to flee the state of Texas because of threats that were being made against me, and of course, things that had occurred with her. And we had been with that family for quite some time, and they were there in New York on the other side of the border, about an hour and a half on the other side of the border. The daughter had an event. It was well, I won't go into details, but anyways, they were there for about a week and I went with them. And the reason that I actually went with them was I was trying to connect in New York with an attorney that was originally from Texas, that was, I would say, probably the only attorney I've ever seen to publicly address a couple of former and still current, very politically connected judges in our county. That for the most part, people leave alone. Not getting into all the details, not going to be naming any names tonight. What I've found out is that when you are dealing with grave injustices over long periods of time, a lot of people involved, you have to kind of be willing to provide some kind of out, right? No county, no agency, no department, no courts, no jurisdictions want to ever actively, when accused or exposed, want to actively come out and admit liability and say, you're right, you got us, we were wrong, let's fix it. They, for self-preservation purposes, can't really cower and say, okay, you win. Oftentimes it's very difficult for them to make a complete reversal of the things that they've been engaging in, because that might be deemed as credibility to accusers' stories that they were right all along. And so what I've learned is if you're okay with not necessarily winning all, right, and having to be right and proven, vindicated fully and totally, that see all these years they were wrong, every single one of them, they knew what they were doing, and now I've won. If you're willing to relinquish the need to do that, and again, I'm not saying that that's a horrible need for everything that has happened and injustice to be vindicated, but what I am saying is I've learned when you're dealing with deep-rooted, deep-seated systemic injustices, you kind of got to be willing to give people an opportunity to bow out gracefully, to bow out reasonably, to bow out without accepting full liability, because what is happening when we share our stories and we shine bright as the bright lights here on my Instagram screen? What occurs is people, they definitely hear stories, just like many of you have heard in mine, and they start to think, oh my goodness, I can relate. Her story's just like mine. I'm going through the same thing. And what happens? One person speaks up and stands up. And a lot of times, and we've seen this in many different arenas, many different ways that it's occurred. I guess one of the biggest movements that a lot of us can refer to or immediately think about is the Me Too movement, right? You have someone stand up, it finally starts to gain some ground, and boom, what happens? Everybody else that's been holding their story for decades comes out of the woodwork, and now there's this avalanche. Another one is the Larry Nassar story, right? With gymnastics, right? All of these young girls, all of these years, their doctor, right, that was violating them. And so again, you get one to stand up. What's another one? Jerry Sandusky case out of Pennsylvania, right? There's so many examples where for decades, things get buried and buried and buried and covered up, concealed, people get intimidated, witnesses die, they move, any number of different things happen, and people wonder, is there ever gonna be any justice? Is anything gonna ever change? And then finally, when it's the right time, I believe something happens, that person is heard. And once they're heard, others hear and they come along. And all of a sudden, the wheels of justice start turning. In modern times right now, we're seeing a lot of this with the Diddy case, right? And of course, you can take the Diddy case and it very closely mirrors and mimics the Epstein case. And so we've seen this happen time and time again. And so you don't ever really have situations where if there are greater powers that be that have acted in complicity with one another, you got to be willing to give them an opportunity to not fully and totally admit fault, but to do what you can for you and others to let them know, hey, there is going to be some transparency, accountability, and exposure if certain things don't stop, right? And that we recognize no one is above the law. And even those people that are in positions of power that are in the law, they have to abide by it as well. Or else, unfortunately, yes, there are legal, lawful, safe, maybe not for them, but for everyone else, just appropriate consequences. And so that is the reason why I'm not mentioning names right now, because the other dynamic is sometimes we can go so hard against people publicly that they have no choice but to dig their heels in and to fight and to try to gather as many people as they can to come against you just to prove I was never wrong, right? And you just stay in this battle that never ends and rages on and actually gets worse. Why? Because we're still dealing with people, right? We're still dealing with the human nature. Yes, pastors, judges, law enforcement officers, people with great power are held to higher standards, right? To whom much is given, much is required. And so we expect them to act better. But at the heart of the matter, if we are being real, if we're being reasonable, if we're being honest with ourselves, these are still people that wake up and get out of bed on 2 legs or less, that still put their clothes on the same way as everybody else, that still bleed red blood and are human just like all the rest of us. And so a lot of us, if we're attacked, what's going to happen? We're going to defend ourselves. And so this is not a conversation justifying or saying that when abusers of power are called to the carpet and made to take accountability, well, they have a right to fight and not ever repent and do the right thing. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I've learned over years, as I'm getting ready to go over right now, sometimes you can talk about what's going on without a commitment that every single day you're going to be in a battle naming people that if they wanted to change things and if they wanted to turn around, they can't even back out of it, right? Because we're in such a fight mode that they have to do the same thing as a defense and then offense to double down, they call it sometimes, to try to save face and not have the avalanche come after them. And so that's kind of my philosophy and kind of how I function. What I've learned is in these situations, a lot of times you also have opportunities to be able to sometimes have private communications. And I'm not talking about illegal ex parte communications with judges. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like happened in my case after over 5 years of being allegedly represented in defense matters pertaining to enforcement of possession and access arising out of not returning my daughter, as law enforcement in Denton County told me before I fled in 2016, don't take her back, right? Because they know about some of the laws we're going to talk about here tonight. And then there's just not only that, there's the legal side, the moral, the ethical side. And unfortunately, what happens a lot of times, you might have domestic violence agencies, child protective services, law enforcement that will inform you about your duty to protect your child and the consequences for failing to protect. And those are all true. What I'm going to be sharing tonight is based out of Texas. Again, it is not legal advice. I'm not an attorney. Don't play one on TV. And so I'm not giving legal advice. I'm sharing my experience. I'm sharing specifically how it relates to my story, which I have the right to tell, obviously, under the First Amendment and my right to free speech. I'm going to do that as responsibly as I can, always as truthfully as absolutely must be. I can and I must. And, of course, other states, I would encourage you to check your state's laws and codes, statutes as well, because just about every state has similar laws. But what will happen a lot of times is they will tell you if a report is made or you have a concern and you realize that there is reasonable suspicion of child abuse, neglect, or even exposure to family violence with a child, particularly your child, they will tell you you have a duty to protect them. Now, that's whether there are custody or domestic relation court orders or not. You have a responsibility to protect them. In Texas, the law says you may not place them in or fail to remove them from a situation in which there's that reasonable suspicion of abuse, neglect, family violence exposure, and great risk. Why did they say reasonable suspicion? Meaning if you or anyone else, mandated reporter or regular citizen in the state of Texas, everybody has a duty to report, mandated reporter or not. They use the term mandated reporter to explain professionals, for instance, that work in schools, CPS, police, medical doctors, psychologists, people that are constantly working with children, that are constantly able to interview, assess risk. If they hear about it, if they believe it, they have to make the report. And they say as long as that's done in good faith, then you're protected, right? You're protected the same way that a lot of judges and law enforcement are protected if they were to enforce various laws or court orders. They say, hey, if you enforce it and it turns out that maybe the person who gave you the order was lying, well, then we're going to put the responsibility back on them, because if you were doing something in good faith, you thought it was lawful, right? Then we're not going to penalize you for that. Well, the same thing happens for those of us that report, right? They're not telling you to do the job of law enforcement and child protective services, and you fully investigated to make sure that you know, right? And you find the resources and the experts and all this other kind of stuff, which is their job and taxpayers pay for to do it. They're saying if it is a reasonable suspicion, then you need to definitely remove them from that environment, not replace them again in that environment. Yes, let CPS know, let police know, so they can do credible, lawful investigations. That's the goal. That's their responsibility, their creeds, their oaths. And then let them make a determination on what's going on before a determination is made to place the child back in that environment. That's the laws, right? As I have continuously been told over years by every professional and official in those sectors of, again, law enforcement, child protective services, domestic violence arena, even within family courts, right? And so in those types of situations, you will be told those things. But then the other side is, of course, if you are dealing with ripe, pending family law matters, divorce matters pertaining to the custody, care, and control of children, this is where it gets sticky. And all of a sudden you have a situation that I call the child protection catch-22, in quotes, right? Because now you have again, I'm going to speaking in Texas terms. I'm an Oklahoma resident right now, but all of my custody matters that I've dealt with in the family court since 2013 for both my son, who's now 20, until, he was 9 at the time, 9 to 20, or 9 to 18, I should say, for 9 years. And then my daughter, which of course that started in 2015. She was born in 2014. So about the time she was 1, she's 10 now, about 9 years for her as well. Total of 11 plus years for me as a mother, having to navigate and deal with the family courts in situations where the child protection catch-22 existed, where you have child protective services laws and you have penal codes, which is criminal codes saying you have to protect your child, then conflicting with what family court orders in the family code say. So you can wind up in a situation, many people do, where, wait a minute, these two laws, codes, and sets of professionals are saying we can't return the child, we have to protect him. But then this one over here is saying we have to, and it's not my middle finger. I just looked at them like that looked really bad. It just worked out that way. Now you have this other set of laws that says, because there's family court orders in place, who's supposed to have possession of the child, right? And even though you may be protecting them, because that's what the criminal and child protective service codes tell you have to do, if the family code laws or court orders say return them, you find yourself asking, okay, wait, y'all are giving me conflicting information, right? The other side is threatening to pursue civil contempt action or enforcement of possession and access, sometimes with jail time in Texas. If it is more than 6 months, then yes, if you are indigent and unable to afford an attorney, they can appoint one to you if jail time is on the line, right? If jail time is not on the line, I think it still stays civil. Again, don't quote me on that. I'm not an attorney, not giving legal advice, but the way it has been as it played out in my story, those were the dynamics. And so when I talk about having a court-appointed attorney to defend me, that's what we're talking about. That means police and CPS, domestic violence agencies, they all advise me, keep your kids safe. I did that, and then all of a sudden there was a filing in family courts where now I'm having to defend enforcement of possession and access. Pertaining to my daughter, there was a 14-day commitment that was actually ruled on, but it was suspended. So that's when they say, okay, yep, you're going to get 14 days in jail. or we're going to suspend it if you now comply. A lot of times that'll happen, but it's handled civilly in the family courts most of the time. Now, of course, as a lot of you have come to be aware of me and know about my story, because I was illegally and falsely arrested out of a child advocacy center in Oklahoma based on a fraud-filled warrant out of Texas, out of dad's jurisdiction, then yes, you've heard about interference with child custody. That sits in the penal criminal codes in Texas, and that is the criminal route of someone's not turning a child over, and so they call it a crime against the family. This is not a situation where there is legal necessity, they call it, which is an affirmative defense. Again, not giving legal advice. You can look all this stuff up, legal advice. But if there is actual necessity where you are protecting that child from child abuse, neglect, family violence, those are the workarounds where, just like if restraining orders or protective orders are issued, even if they're temporary ex parte without an evidentiary hearing based on the pleadings under penalty of perjury, if those are issued, then instantly what happens is they actually trump and will go over and take over the current custody orders until that hearing has occurred and a determination can be made. Are these orders going to be finalized? Are they going to become more permanent? Is there going to be injunctions in place? And so it is a long-standing, not misunderstood dynamic that if there are risk factors, abuse, neglect, family violence, there are risks of irreparable harm, danger that cannot be reversed to a child, substantial threat, risk of bodily injury, then yes, child protection naturally. Whether you have a law like Hayden's law that has been adopted in your state or not, definitely in Texas, I don't believe one has been, but those things are naturally set up that the safety is supposed to come first. Right? So you've heard about interference with child custody. That is going to exist when you have situations where, for instance, maybe a parent's not turning a child over as court ordered because they're saying that, oh, well, they're not paying child support, right? Or they're not consistent. They show up whenever they want to, and I'm tired of it. Or, you know what? I don't like how they talk to me. Or any number of different reasons, even if sometimes there may be a refusal to give an address, and this can happen on the mom or dad's side. And if they don't have it, they feel like, well, you don't have any rights to your child. And a lot of times that's not exactly how those orders are written. So just my suggestion as a community member, because this is a community chat, is do the best that you can absolutely to comply with court orders unless there is legitimate abuse, neglect, family violence, risk of harm to the child. And in that situation, again, if you can get legal advice, I would strongly, highly suggest it. I would also make sure that you are in contact with police and CPS so that they do have investigations going on and that there is something credible taking place to say, no, this is not just a parent denying another parent's parenting time, right? Because they don't want to turn the child over, which is what I believe maybe in its beginning, entrance into the Texas Penal Code. I think that's what it was designed to do. Yes, has there been times where there's been certain parties that have just said, I don't want to, so you don't get to see your kid. We're not together anymore. Sorry, go away. And I personally, even as a mom, I don't agree with that. I've mentioned this before. Initially, for many years, I've done a lot of advocacy work for people all across the country. That means including assisting a lot of fathers as well. I started out doing a lot of that for a long time. I would say 2021, I really slowed down on that because of a situation that went internationally viral. And, at the request of the entire paternal family, dad first and everybody else, grandparents, I put myself in a position of risk to help this family, and it totally backfired on me. And then I started to realize patterns that there may be some gender biases that go on in the family courts. And of course, each side is going to have their argument. So we're not getting into that today, but there are definitely some things that are very specific that are happening to moms. I can't deny it after 11 years. And when you see my document and what I'm getting ready to go over, you will see, wow, there are definitely some challenges. And in these challenges, sometimes we talk about misogyny, we talk about patriarchy. Sometimes people talk about the fact that, again, there's gender biases. The thing that's interesting about that is it's not just occurring from men against women. A lot of times, a lot of these judges, and we talk about this often, a lot of guardian ad litem, a lot of other professionals, air quotes, not acting professionally are women as well. But we're talking about what are the standards, what are the double standards and expectations of mothers to literally be perfect and flawless, and then how is it perceived when a man just steps up and says, hey, I want my kid, and everyone's like, oh, he's such a great dad. There's definitely some differences. So I don't do as much work with fathers anymore. One, because I'm a mother and I relate to other women and other mothers. We have struggles that are very unique to us. It does not mean I'm completely and totally against fathers. In my professional work that I do, giving people affordable access or introducing people to affordable access to expert, high-quality attorneys at affordable rates, I help moms and dads, right? And so I don't have a bias one way or another, but what I do have is personal experience. What I do have is experience helping other families coast to coast for over a decade now. What I have is personal experience, 3 different relationships, over 29, 30 years. And so I do have a very informed opinion on the matters that I'm going to be speaking about. I want to take a breath for a moment because I see multiple individuals on Instagram that have joined me. So I've tried to wave at y'all. Hope you've seen my waves. I don't want to start calling names because I don't want to mispronounce anybody's name, but I do see, I'm going to read this. It's Kristen McGrove, it looks like. That is what happened to me. Upheld the law to protect my child. They took her anyways, charged me, and I had to fight it through Texas Appeals Court and the 8th District Court of Appeals. Wow. I'm so sorry to hear that, Kristen. Yeah, I mean, these things are happening, but thank you for chiming in. I call this a community chat because I do want it to be an active conversation and engagement. So I'm not really seeing, wait a minute. I don't see any comments on my StreamYard yet, which would be YouTube and Facebook. But I also need to go ahead and open up the document I'm going to go over and pull it up on my screen, and then I'm going to go back to the chat. Okay, so if you do happen to pop in, if you're there, you're watching this. Oh no! Oh, this is horrible. Wow. Okay. This is going to be weird for those of you that are on Instagram because, well, maybe I'm live already. I can't tell. Okay, yes, I am. I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm looking at 2 totally different screens, and now I'm completely confused. Y'all bear with me. I'm not a master at this at all. So I do see a chat. I think if you are, that's what's wrong. I've got 2 screens open. Oh, okay. I think I figured out what's happened. Instagram, you're fine. I right now am recording live directly on my YouTube studio. So that's what I'm looking at. And then I saw another open window, which is actually my StreamYard. And that one showed it was not live yet. And I thought, have I been rambling for 30 minutes and it's not live? No. I have that set up ready to go in the event that I get ready to share my screen and it doesn't work. And I know I can screen share with StreamYard, but not with YouTube, possibly. We're about to find out. Not a master at any of this in any way, shape, form, or fashion yet. I'm working on it, y'all. I'm doing my best. I'm going to go ahead and close all these additional screens I've got going because I think that's why I'm so confused and a little overwhelmed, not technologically savvy at all. I'm going to keep my download screen there. Okay, family code. All right, I've minimized my screens and activeness that's going on in the background there. So I'm going to try to dive right in. Y'all, this is a whopper. Back to being on the side of the road in Pennsylvania in 2016. I was forced to flee because I had been abiding by all the rules and laws. 2013 with my son, 14 with my son, 15 with my son. And unfortunately, what was happening was there was a lot of things going on in his school environment where he was actually being abused, sustaining injuries, constantly getting false statements and reports from his school. You know, these are teachers, professionals, the district, and just trying to protect my child while I was in the middle of a custody case. Unfortunately, I think the way that they encourage parents to fight one another, because those dynamics were present and escalated. My ex-husband and I actually had done okay co-parenting for many years after our divorce in 2008, but enter the family court and attorneys where they make more money to get cash for conflict and make you fight. A lot of those dynamics were going on. And none of this, I want to say, is to bash my former spouses. I do have two. They are the fathers of my 4 sons. 3 have the same father. From the age of 14 to 21, I was with him. So he was my first love, high school sweetheart. We got married when I was 17, when we were giving birth to our second son. Had the first when I was 15, a month before 16. Second at 17, we got married. He was a year ahead of me, went into the military. We moved away together, had our third at 18, but unfortunately, I also entered my first domestic violence shelter at 18 as a result of that relationship. And, my boys are older now. They are now, of course, we lost Josh in April. He was 25 years young, gone way too soon. Now we have Jerry, many of you know him, and he's 27. And then my oldest, Isaiah, he is 29. And so I am thankful that they are in a place where they are reestablishing relationship with their father and maternal side of the family. I respect that. I honor that. I'm happy for them in that. But unfortunately, yeah, there's painful history. That another reason I haven't done this so many years is I don't find great joy in having to, quote unquote, expose and air out what people would call dirty laundry of the relationships, other parent attached to my children. It doesn't give me great joy to do that. I was raised in a Christian conservative family, so I have very much Christian conservative views that children need mother and father. I was raised that way. I am the daughter of a pastor father, of a early childhood Christian education and public school mother. And so I grew up in a traditional family, and those are my beliefs. That's my core. I believe if it works, fabulous. I think it is the best situation. But what I have learned is it would be better for a child, even if they are being raised by a single parent. And again, yes, I know there's exceptions. This could be dads as well. Sometimes they are the healthier parent. But it's better for them to be raised by a single parent in a healthy environment than just for the sake of they need to have both, and toxicity and risk and hurt and harm and danger constantly going on. But that was not necessarily my frame of reference going through all these relationships. Also with the Christian component of no one's perfect and forgive, forget, grace, mercy, all these dynamics. That's other things that contribute to continuing to stay in patterns that are unhealthy, that we know do not feel right, that we know that are not even consistent with our faith. And what would Jesus do, right? But we want to make it work. Obviously, there's also a bond to the people that you, for some people, at least for me, that you create children and whole human beings with. And so, definitely being a part of the cycle of abuse dynamics from that relationship to my next, which was what I call the rebound relationship when I was just 21 years young. I met a gentleman that was 7 years older than me. He was going through a separation and divorce, as was I, after my spouse had been gone for some period of time after violating a protective order. And so what do we typically do, so many of us, when we get out of one relationship, instead of really healing and figuring out who are we, what went wrong, what do we want to do different, we will land in the arms of someone else, right? We'll rebound. And so that's why I say rebound relationship. And so I was with him from 21 to 28. And in that relationship, we did have a son together. That is my now 20-year-old son. And again, even though every relationship, just why they're unique and they have their great aspects, they're unique and they have their not so great aspects. Again, have I been perfect in any of these relationships as well? Coping and dealing with one, just being young and not fully mature, but also, dealing with abuse dynamics, dealing with other dynamics that I think as young and even older individuals, we all process differently. Are there things I would have done differently in both those relationships? Absolutely. And so I don't share any of this to destroy my former spouses. My daughter, she is a result of my last dating relationship, a gentleman that I started dating 2010. This would have been 2 years after my second divorce, so I was not in a relationship or married at that time. We dated for some months and then kind of fell away. Got an executive position in California, so I moved away, and that created a break, and then just some other dynamics. Wasn't the best dynamic at that time for us. And then in 2013, claims that a lot had changed, gave it another chance, and that's where my daughter came from. We were never married, we never lived together, and so that is the third father relationship that you're going to hear about. And of course, that is the one that, yes, most people are following and finding out about right now. My daughter is now 10 and a half. She does love YouTube. I think that I'm marking all these videos as not for kids, so they shouldn't be shown or suggested to her. But she is allowed more YouTube access than I was comfortable with when she came home April, and I really worked to curb that. So I don't anticipate she's going to see this, but because as a mother, that has always been a concern for me, is I don't really want to share openly, specifically major details about the fathers of my children for how it might affect them. What I'll say is that all of my children now, including my daughter, they are now old enough and seasoned enough to know what happened. What is happening, and we aren't all of a sudden being harmed because mom or others are talking about it. We're being harmed or have been harmed because it happened, and we either, as a family or those that are participating in the harm, they either stop it and we all get to be healthier, or mom's not wrong for fighting to protect us. And that's just the understanding that they all have. My daughter, when she came to me after 8 years of my rights being interfered with unjustly, they had already started talking about family violence, domestic abuse within the school, child abuse, neglect. She already had friends that were being raised by other family members because of problems with the parents. Unfortunately, one of Dad's girlfriends that was living in the home had exposed her to some movies that were even dealing with the topic of RAP, you know what. And so she came to me with all kinds of different information and exposures and dynamics that over the 8 years that I wasn't even with her, unjustly, she was already aware of, right? She already knew what was wrong. I had heard that she had already been confronting Dad and his girlfriend about things that were going on. Even though I wasn't able to secure a permanent protective order for multiple reasons, and some of those we'll talk about in this, some of them we may not, I have still said what I said. I will never recant any allegation that I have ever made because they've always been truthful. And again, I would challenge someone to file a lawsuit and say I've ever made a false allegation because they know I'm good for it, I'll make time for it, and now I get to provide the proof. So the absence of criminal charges, the absence of a finding with CPS, the absence of a finalized protective order in family courts, none of that means that suspicion of or allegations of abuse, neglect, family violence, or some other wrongdoing were false or wrong. There are any number of different reasons why we don't reach a finding and validity to what the claim was. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And so this is a lot to kind of just get and lay the groundwork of where we're going, why this is such a big deal for me to actually decide to do this. One of the big reasons that I'm also doing this is because there's so many people that are reaching out every day now. And a lot of you are in Texas, and a lot of you are dealing with dynamics like as Kristen has shared, where as a community, some of us can afford to pay attorneys, and even when we can't afford to pay attorneys, because they are a part of the legal community, they're officers of the court, right? I heard a judge say when we went to court on the 5th to opposing counsel, I'd love to move forward, but unfortunately all your colleagues aren't here yet, right? They work together. So what that means, and I talked about this in one of my lives just a couple of days ago, is the professional courtesy and the level of expectation that attorneys even have to not constantly be calling out their opposing counsel, calling out judges, it's kind of baked into how they're trained as attorneys. And so if things are going awry, if there are injustices, if there's even corruption that's happening, a lot of attorneys are trained to do no harm to their community members or themselves and possibly risk their license, because some of the most aggressive, zealous fighting attorneys have faced retaliation from judges. Now they're going to lose all the rest of their cases in a jurisdiction. They may have claims made against their license. I remember years ago, there was an attorney out of Louisiana that, again, was being retaliated against. And I think she finally had a burn my bar card at the Supreme Court party because she was just sick of it. And so, the great attorneys that we all wish that we had, that had great courage and then just got in there and said, hey, this is wrong. We got to stop doing this and do the right thing. It comes at a great cost to them. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't pay that cost. I fully believe that every professional, every person in power, they should do to others as they would want done for them and those they love the most. But the reality is, that's just not what we see. The reality is, I think people get into professions, whether it's law enforcement, child protection, law, the judiciary, even mental health professionals, doctors, all these different medical field. I believe for the most part, most people get involved in these professions, right? Schools, religious organizations, I think for the right reasons. I want to give the benefit of the doubt to most people. They join for the right reasons. It does not mean once they get in and they start to learn the culture that the expectations are, you toe the line, right? We protect each other at all costs. Don't care what happened, don't care what you know, don't care what you saw, don't care what you heard. If legitimately we're in the wrong, we still hold the front line and protect each other. It's us against them. A lot of these professional cultures, y'all, they are built and baked in that way, right? Most people don't agree or don't disagree that a perfect example of this is that thin blue line, right, in law enforcement, right? We got to protect ourselves, us against the world. Right? I know in military communities, a lot of that is true. And so that concept of more of a tribalistic view of us against them, again, not totally saying it's completely wrong, because they do place their lives at risk all day, every day to protect and serve for the most part. At the same time, we have a lot of issues within the system where that's not what's being done. And either way, almost to the death, a lot of times they will protect each other. And so if attorneys aren't necessarily explaining and going over all of these different dynamics, we shouldn't be surprised. Another reason that a lot of attorneys are not explaining all of the various different dynamics is if you're, let's say, a family lawyer. Again, everything I'm going to be talking about is based on Texas. You're not also actively engage in studying fully and totally criminal law as well as child protection law. There are different board specifications, right, and specializations, I should say, for these areas of law. There's entire different professional associations, associations of XYZ defense attorneys, right? They are not one and the same. And if you get that attorney that says, hey, I'm a lawyer, I can practice every area of law, all I'm going to say is be careful with that, because in the same way that you would not want your heart surgery being done by your podiatrist that works on feet, you really want attorneys that specialize in the area of law that you're dealing with, right? In my professional work that I do, self-employed, working with a 52-plus-year-old rock-solid company, again, that provides affordable access to attorneys in most all of your everyday life events, from the trivial to traumatic. We have the benefit to be able to call in and talk about things based on that area of law. Maybe we have tax questions. Maybe we have probate and estate matters, getting our will done. Maybe we've got a traffic ticket violation. Maybe, yes, we have a criminal charge. Maybe we, have questions about any number of different things, right? Education law, right? And we have the ability to call in and say, hey, this is the area of law. Maybe we have consumer affairs issues, debt collection issues. Maybe we have breaches of contracts. And so what they're going to do, or we have business matters, right? We've got plans for small business owners. what happens is we contact them and let them know what is the issue pertaining to. They're going to connect us with an attorney that specializes in the area of law that we have an issue, right? Maybe IP, intellectual property, right? As a part of a business brand or, assets that you've created and developed. So all of these various different dynamics, all these different bodies and areas of law, you really don't want necessarily the one size fits all general lawyer that, I can do everything. They might know a little bit about everything, but they're not going to know a lot about the things that may very well be impacting your right to freedom, your parent-child relationship, and literally life and death that you and your children are dealing with. And so what I want to encourage people to do in this is to definitely do your studying, do your research, right? Google is an amazing resource where you can Google just about anything. And a lot of times it'll take you straight to the statutes, straight to the codes from the legislative and governmental bodies that have issued those statutes, those laws, those codes. A lot of that you can get online, that'll pop up. Now, as far as case law and jeopardizing and all these other different dynamics, primary mandatory authorities and all of these other things that attorneys do, and as lay people, whether we're pro se, self-represented, and pro per, as it's called in California, representing ourselves or not, all of these other different dynamics that we may or may not know about, which, by the way, is what kind of, air quotes, controls a judge, in terms of their ruling. If they have sufficiently similar facts, then, this ruling has been determined in this particular jurisdiction or area, so they are supposed to kind of follow suit. All those different dynamics, whether you know that or not. It's really important to be able to have, counsel that is knowledgeable, and also personally to be knowledgeable. There's a program I've mentioned before that also teaches you everything you need to know about how to win in court without a lawyer. I have not gotten through that. I'm not blazing through it. When I first got it around Thanksgiving week, I thought I'm going to take 3-4 days and just knock it out and get it done. Well, when your situations are very traumatic, for me, I was coming out of 2 weeks imprisonment. So you're dealing with a lot of trauma, you're dealing with a lot of healing, you're dealing with a lot of fear, you're dealing with a lot of overwhelm, dealing with a lot of exhaustion, right? Dealing with a lot of concerns. My daughter, what's happening now? Then there's just everyday life, still needing to make money and pay bills and catch back up with everyone that I couldn't communicate with, and all the things that fell to the wayside while I was in there, right? I was thinking I'll just take 3-4 days and knock it out and get it done. That still hasn't happened since before Thanksgiving, and I'm doing a little bit at a time. Over the years, yes, I've spent great amounts of time in law libraries. Definitely when I was living underground, forced to have to flee, Texas trauma, Texas terror that had been raging on for years when really bad things happened to my daughter that were medically documented. I'm just now learning and getting to understand a lot of the rules of engagement in a courtroom, right? Objections, evidence, just the crux of a lawsuit, the flow chart of it, how it works, and so many different dynamics. It's a 40+ year attorney that teaches it. It's a course, go at your own pace. And so if anyone's interested in that, I can definitely drop a link. Might go ahead and drop one in the chat when this is over anyways. Definitely check it out. It's helpful. We need to be proficient, right? A lot of times they do expect us to know and conduct ourselves like attorneys. Yes, there's supposed to be some level of leniency. This is not our profession, our job like attorneys. We're parents, right? And so while we are still honored and cannot necessarily ride on using ignorance, nor should we want to. I think that if we know better, we should do better. At the same time, I think we should not let anyone pressure us into having the proficiency and the understanding of an attorney. But at the same time, because judges are supposed to be unbiased and they're not supposed to be able to help us and give us legal advice, they are supposed to be arbiters, right, of facts and law. And what evidence gets in and what evidence stays out, they're serving as referees. They're not supposed to be helping us just because, they don't have a lawyer, they don't know. Let me just continue to stop proceedings and try to teach them law. right? They can't do that. By law, they can't do that. It's not right. It's not lawful. It's not appropriate. So if anything, what I'm trying to encourage people to do is get to know the laws in your state in these different 3 bodies and areas of law, because they're important. They're important for your children. They're important for children in your community, that are around you, those that you love. Understand what those dynamics are. Understand if there are provisions where fleeing is a must because everything was tried in a particular jurisdiction and powers that be don't seem to want to be abiding by the law. Again, I'm not telling anyone to flee, and I'm telling you it's a very risky thing. A lot of times when people flee, especially mothers, they may not ever get unsupervised time with their children back. Of course, again, if it was necessity, there's an affirmative defense, and the system, even though they may not acknowledge it, they know that you weren't just making it up. They may not rule that, but they know you weren't making up. They know that there's evidence. You may be okay, but again, not trying to encourage anyone to do that, not giving legal advice. Study laws like CAPTA, right? Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act, right? Study laws that talk about if you have to flee, what happens when you get to the refuge jurisdiction, right? We hear about immigrants and refugees coming to America from different countries. Most of you probably didn't even know that that's a thing within the states, that you could be in a jurisdiction that has so much bias going on, right? That you need a change of venue. You're not safe because it doesn't matter who you talk to, police or CPS or family courts. There has been such an internal, professional, and official bias against you that it does not matter what you say, what you do. It's going to be a situation where they're not hearing you, and you're already wrong, and you're already making it up. And so there's just absolutely nothing that can be done about it. And if that is a situation where, for instance, they have a motion in family courts or family law, Texas Family Code, that says, it's a motion to change venue for inability to get an unbiased trial in a jurisdiction, right? That can be pertaining to professionals. That can also be pertaining to maybe you had a case. Sorry, I'm getting a message. That could be perhaps maybe there's been a case that has gone public and you need a jury trial and the entire jury pool has been tainted. Any number of different reasons why you might say, hey, I'm not getting a fair shake. I don't care what happens and what admissible evidence I have in a jurisdiction. You can prove that, get witnesses to back it up. Hey, we've witnessed stuff. We've seen it, and this is crazy. There is nothing even remotely close to getting an unbiased ruling or anything in a jurisdiction for this individual. That's a motion. That's a thing. It exists. And a lot of times that also can be part of the reason, besides fleeing, domestic violence, threats against people's lives, which that was part of my dynamic when I was forced to flee in 2016 as well, where, you got to get to a refuge location. And sometimes they may say, once you get to that refuge location, you got 24, 48, 72 hours to get in touch with domestic violence agency, CPS, police, file your paperwork in court. You can't sit on it, right? Let them know what is your legal argument as to why all of a sudden you have gone from jurisdiction A, where you were supposed to keep a child, especially if there's geographic restrictions, to now you're in jurisdiction B or Z somewhere around the country. Why has that happened? Why have you removed the child from the jurisdiction or the powers of that particular court? Tell us now. Make sure you got good evidence. Let's figure out what needs to happen. And so there are actually laws in place when those situations arise. So again, not giving legal advice, not encouraging anybody to run it all. Again, it is a situation and risk factor that can cost you your relationship with your child forever until they're 18. Amen. Not amen, but you get what I'm saying. With these different dynamics going on, learn the laws in your state. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. So what I'm going to do, this is going to be a little bit interesting. I'm going to consider this part 1. I've laid a lot of groundwork, and I really wish I didn't have to stop and start over. But part of my concern is I don't really want to use this or lose this on Instagram. And I found if I go over an hour, it doesn't always seem to save. The other dynamic is because I am on a YouTube live studio, I realize that right now it is not telling people on Facebook that I'm live at all. And so that means I'm getting text messages saying, hey, did you do your live? Are you live? And clearly I am, but they can't see it. So I don't know. Actually, another option may be, see if I can share it on Facebook. Live now. Maybe I can do a highlight at followers. I think. No, I don't even know if it's working. It's at followers. Okay. And I think there's another one. Is it called highlight? Does anyone know? Yeah, highlight. Live now on YouTube. Please join if you can. Subscribe, comment, like, and share. Definitely appreciated. Okay. Thank you, Instagram, for being patient with me. I want to make sure I'm communicating that, yes, I am live at this moment. And I probably should have tried to see if I can even go to a screen share on YouTube, because I just put a YouTube link out there that may or may not work. So I'm seeing you all in the chat. Everyone works as well. Okay, thank you so much, Caitlin. I appreciate that. Let me try to do that also. I think I've used that before when I was in a Facebook group. And so I added everyone. It didn't come up with anything yet, but I'm going to go ahead and put it on there anyways. Thank you for that tip. Again, still trying to figure all of this stuff out. I'm not the most technologically savvy person, but I'm doing my best. Thank you all for your patience. Okay, so I have put that out there, and I forgot to tag my Marlana Yvette Christopher. One moment, y'all, please bear with me. Edit the post. Tag Marlana Yvette Christopher. Okay, good. All right, I've done it, so hopefully that should notify people. Oh, maybe it only works for groups. Nope, totally understand. But yes, I think the followers and the highlight works for just notifying your friends and followers on your main pages, but I think everyone is a groups thing. But thank you anyways, Ms. Caitlin, I appreciate you letting me know that. And definitely please continue to join in the chat. So, oh, you know, this is the other thing I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to switch to StreamYard, because what I realized is, nope, and it's not set up to do StreamYard on Instagram yet. I don't know how I'm going to share my screen with those of you that are on Instagram. That is my only challenge. Okay, how do I do this? I know all of you are not on Facebook, and not all of you have the YouTube link. So let me try this. I'm going to go ahead and drop in the chat on Instagram. You can join us live. I'm going to go ahead and do that link. I'm going to copy it. I'm opening up my Instagram page, and I'm going to ask you to join us on YouTube. It's showing that I'm live on Instagram. Yep, it is. So I think I can get into the chat. Yes, I can. There we go. There's the YouTube link. Maybe point your camera at the screen. That could work too. I like that. That works, Caitlin. I'm going to try to do that. No problem. So one thing that I will say is I do almost want to break this up, though, because it's been going for an hour. Again, I do not want to lose. I don't want to lose the live. And for some reason, I think I'm the only one on IG Live. I can't. Okay. I think you are as well. Let me see if I can. Let me try. Let's see here. Oh, wait, how do I find you? I'm on my live screen, and I don't know if it's going to let me. Let me try. Messages. Caitlin, can you, let me see. Let's see. There you are. Okay. I think, let's see if that works. Caitlin, let me know if you can see it. Did you get it in your messenger? Hopefully. Got it. Yay! Thank you for your patience. I'm trying to figure it out. Thank you for working with me. All right. See you there. Sounds good. All right. I'm going to go ahead and close this down. Instagram, I'm probably going to reboot it and start it. It'll be a part two, a different live, and hopefully it's safe. If it doesn't, thank you to those of you that have popped in and popped out. I've seen you, I've typed away. I appreciate you all and I look forward to their reconnecting and reconvening with you here in just a moment. Miss Steady for real. Hey, love, I see you. Good to see you. I'm going to try to come back on live again for part two. If I miss it, I did drop a link in the chat for YouTube, or also it's live on my Facebook page. So hopefully you can join us and come over to YouTube. And at the same time, here in a moment, I might realize we have to go to StreamYard. So bear with me. I'm sorry, y'all. Figuring it out. Okay. Talk to you later. Bye. On Instagram. Okay. I know you're still with me over here on YouTube. Thank you for your patience. I know sometimes people do this and they all have multiple screens, and I do not have that kind of setup, so I apologize. But um, let me try to make sure that this is saved. And I'm going to go into part two here in just one moment. Try to share the document. I'm going to call this community chat 4. And today's date is 12/18/24. All right. I'm just going to say Texas was. All right. I'm sharing it on Instagram. Hopefully it saves. I'm going to say the location just so it contacts people in Texas, even though I don't necessarily share my location in real time for obvious reasons, whatever it may be. Okay. I don't know if it's going to share on Instagram or not. I'm trying to hit the share button, but this is what I'm talking about. If it gets too long, it doesn't always seem to want to convert. But I don't want to keep you waiting forever on YouTube either. So what I'm going to try to do now is I'm going to actually see if there is a functionality to share my screen. I see a few of you on YouTube. Caitlin, I see you. Okay, I made it. Woo-hoo! Welcome again. See you. I see a couple others that are watching live. Kirsty, did you make it loud? I know you're trying to. Uh, I cannot tell if this is showing up on my Facebook, y'all. Let me see. Ah, technical difficulties for sure. And part of it is just a matter of, okay, let me share. Oh, wait. Yes, I think I can. I'm going to put this in a group. And hopefully it'll send. And one thing particularly was trying to get, hopefully that worked. Okay. Now I see 4. So Kirsty, if you're here, or anyone else, if you want to drop in the chat, I can see the chat. That's a great thing. Yay. What I'm going to try to do now is see if I have the ability of going to my manage screen. This says pop out dashboard. This says send feedback. I don't have access to that feature. I don't know what that feature is. I'm just trying to show my document. Share screen. I think I can do it. Here we go. I'm going to be so excited if I can. Yes, y'all, I think it's going to work. Can you all see a table of contents right now? And now, okay, I'm going back to, that's what's going to happen. Okay, wait. I think I can see my screen. And I think I can still see me. I think it's working. Caitlin, can you see? Oh, you see a black screen. So you don't see a document that says table of contents? You do see it. Yay! Okay, good deal. So you see something that says table of contents. All right, thank you for commenting and letting me know. I love it. I love it. I love it. It worked, y'all. This is exciting. Okay, good deal. Let me send this one. I'm live now. Please check my Facebook for the link. This is someone that's trying to join me. Maybe actually have her come on if she's able. She's out of California. You see me in the document. Sorry, there's a lag in the comments, so sometimes you won't see them a few seconds after we comment. I love it. But I can see you, I can see me, I can see the table of contents, and yes, we have success. I'm not going to stop this particular live. I'm going to keep going. I'm trying to turn let's see, my Instagram back on to go live on Instagram again, and it's not letting me share anything. So I don't know what to do about Instagram. It's trying to ask me, do I want to just start it? No, I don't want to just start it. I want to share it, but it doesn't want to share. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn my phone off, and it comes back up, and it gives me the opportunity. Okay, I see Kirsty hopping on now. If it gives me the opportunity to Instagram live, I will do that. If not, I'm just going to go ahead and start rolling with this on YouTube. Oh, I struggle to even know how to turn this phone off. I really have technological challenge problems. This is I had this problem when I was in court. There we go. There's the okay. Wait, off button here. When I got out, my phone had crashed again, a different phone, and so I had to replace the phone. So now I don't really have the best idea. How do I restart it? Turn it off? Turn it on? Okay, so this document here in just a moment. Well, you know what? I might give it just a moment to see if it comes back on and see if I can do Instagram. The other thing I need to check and see is how do I get this document to move to a different page? I want to make sure that we can move it. It's not wanting to move. This may be. Caitlin, can you tell me, are you seeing it move now? And I'm going to have to go back. So this is going to say state within jurisdictions, states 1 through 8, counties 1 through 13. And I'm going to click back over to see, you can see it move. Okay, perfect. So I think what's going to have to happen is when I move the document, I'm going to have to click to another screen. Whatever you do on your screen, we can see. Okay, perfect. Good deal. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it, Caitlin. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my phone back on. I'm going to try to see if I can go ahead and get back on Instagram for part 2 so that those on Instagram can join us. They will not be able to see my screen, so I will let people know actively that they need to join us on. Okay, I don't know. All these beeps and things that are going on. I don't know what any of that means. Facebook keeps logging you out. Okay, love. Kirsty, I see you. If you need to join us on Instagram, I am on Instagram as well. So that may be. I may have to just do. I don't want to move to StreamYard, but I may have to move to StreamYard. Because I think StreamYard will give me. All right. Hey, we're back on Instagram. If you have been joining us tonight, at any point in time. We had part one to this. Nope, not trying to end it. We had the part one going for a good hour to tonight's community chat, and now we're going into an actual document. We're going to be talking about Texas laws, not giving legal advice. I'm not an attorney, not the one on TV, but I am a mom who has had to become intimately involved with these laws. And so I see you, Kirsty, looks like you got on here. Awesome. Request to be in the live video. Let's see here. I think we can do that. I'm gonna bring you on, Kirsty, if you, I don't know that you'll see my screen. Oh, that was an accident. Okay. All right, no problem. All right, so hopefully you can see it. I will actually take the screen and just point it at different things that we're looking at if I need to. Otherwise, I'm just going to talk. And so Instagram, you may not have the same visibility that YouTube does. But again, Caitlin, thank you for hanging on. Others that I see are watching, I don't really know who you are, but you're there. And so we're going to go ahead and get this party started. Part two of Community Chat 4. It is December 18th, 8:13 p.m. Central Standard Time. Okay, so what I have here is a document, and I'll tell you this document was created while I was underground. I never give up who my helpers are because I protect the people protecting me, but I'll just say this is a very seasoned advocate, executive, decades in these dynamics of what we're dealing with in the family courts, trying to protect our children, associated and affiliated police and CPS systems. And so a lot of this at the time I did from memory. I also did, because I put together 135 binders of evidence. This was my son's case, my daughter's case. And when you're underground, you can't live a normal life. You got a lot of time to learn a lot of laws and to put a lot of evidence together, number it, to scan it. So I now have actually done that. They're in physical format, but also on flash drives. And so ultimately, that's where this came from, which was trying to create a chronological document because everyone likes to see things differently. It's kind of our human nature, if you will, right? Some people, they want to hear a story or chronology. Some people, they need to be able to see it and read it. Some like to watch a video, whatever the case may be, especially when you're talking about investigations. A lot of times it's best if it's on paper. Like, look at it and go after it based on what is on the documents. Make notes, print it off, see it, reference it. You have to rewind the tape. And so we put this document into, absolutely, I see Caitlin, amen, right? Different views, different formats. I was encouraged to create this, and someone else was sitting and typing as I was dictating and giving information, and we worked on it together. Now, the other thing is, again, I'm not an attorney. Things may have changed. I might state something incorrectly, so let this be my apology right now and ask for grace. A lot of the things that I'm mentioning, again, always do your own research, always do your own confirmations. A lot of people are using AI for documents now, and I'm finding out that it's actually a great source. If she comes on, I might even let her talk about it later. I don't know how I'm going to reach out to her. I might try to send her a message. There's actually a phenomenal mama that is also in her own battle executive that has great software for drafting documents. But a lot of people are using AI. Even with that, that's great. It can help. It can get a lot of motion, get a lot of things going, but you always want to check to make sure that it's not doing what they call hallucinating. And that's where there was actually a situation, I believe it was out of New York, a couple of attorneys used AI. The AI developed its own case law, cases that were not real cases, and it created some real issues for those attorneys. So anything that you hear from anyone looking at your life, your future, your children on the line, you definitely want to check it twice. But what I'm getting ready to say and what I'm going to say over this period of time is the best of my knowledge upon information and belief, personal experience, not legal advice, not mental health advice, not any other advice, sharing my experiences and what I've learned over 11 plus years of personally being in the battle. This is one mom with a battle and one mom with a family court story. That said, I do believe there are 13 different U.S. district court jurisdictions. And what you see on the screen right now is I have a statement of jurisdictions. Again, I'm not giving names to any of these people. I'm not naming states. I'm not naming people. There is a key for this. That key is transmitted nationally. So in the event I disappear because I'm not suicidal, not homicidal, I still have committed no crimes. There's no reason I should be going to jail. I will never fight police and I'm not fleeing. Yes, I'm under a lot of pressure. Yes, I'm going through a lot of things, but I'm going to continue to go through them for my children. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to cower, and I'm still trusting in God and the goodness of somebody somewhere in power between Texas and Oklahoma to give us resolve to the various fights to freedom and justice fights that we're in right now. All of that said, if something should happen to me again, yes, people have this key. And yes, the key will line up with what states are we talking about, what counties are we talking about, what judges, what attorneys. Yes, the key is out there. I'm not going to give the information to people the key based on what I explained before. I won't repeat it at the beginning of this YouTube. If you want to go back and listen to it, I explain why I give an opportunity for people to bow out, besides going full blown, exposing names and everything, because sometimes in this level of, yes, corruption or official oppression, we're going to go over actual definitions. What are the elements that need to be met under the various different codes and laws? How do I know that I know what I'm talking about? Again, had lots of time, years to study this stuff. You got to give them an out sometimes. That's been my personal experience. Yours is yours, and I honor that. Okay, so here we are. It's a great source. Definitely need to proofread and edit. Yes, Kirsty, absolutely. And she's joining us on Instagram. Glad to hear that is so true with the AI. Okay, so my belief is that what I've learned is there's like 13 U.S. district courts, and those, of course, are positioned all the way throughout the country. If you have situations that become federal, I've heard some of the things that can do that. Again, do not quote me on all of this. Let's say you have a matter that is over $75,000, right? So like in Texas, we call our courts, we have like municipal courts. These are your traffic courts, right? We have county courts at law, and justice of the peace. You know, these can deal with your eviction. So like justice of the peace might deal with your eviction type dynamics. If someone appeals it, it may go into a county court at law. Oh my goodness. You know what? Let me see. Hold on 1 second. No, I can't. I'm gonna send this person a message. We'll do that. And then your highest state level courts before you get to appellate courts, we call them in Texas district courts. I know in California they're called superior courts, but a lot of times it's where your family laws are, family law cases are heard. Your general courts jurisdiction, district courts in Texas. Of course, if you're appealing something at the trial court level, what it's a lot of times referred to, then it goes to the appellate court. And then, of course, once it goes to the appellate court, definitely in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we have a Dallas appellate court. Then, of course, now, appellate courts get into federal courts and even then state Supreme Courts, U.S. Supreme Courts. Everything has a hierarchy, right? So my belief is that there's 13 U.S. district courts. Let's say you have a matter that, let's say it's over $75,000. Let's say you have a diversification of citizenship. So that means you have parties that are located across state lines. Now that's a federal type situation because you have cross state lines. So it can't be covered under one state's laws because now you have multiple states that have their own constitutions, they have their own laws, their own dynamics, right? So now you have things that can very easily get into potentially federal jurisdictions. Let's say an example, when I was going through a paralegal program, kind of self-taught, let's say there's an accident, right, with an airplane. On an airplane, maybe the airplane took off in Texas and it was en route to California, and then it hit Arizona and something happened and there was a crash. That is going to be a case that will most likely wind up in federal court, right? Because on that airplane, you're going to have people that live in all different states, all different jurisdictions. You're going to be dealing with a manufacturer that maybe created the wing, and you're going to be dealing with someone else that is responsible for who hired the pilot, and all types of different dynamics. So a lot of times you get into district courts with those types of situations. All of that said, over my time of 2013 to this goes to, I believe, November 2016. It might go a little bit further than that, but I think this is just 3 years, y'all. What this document is 90 crimes and law violations that have been committed against me and my children, just 2013 to 2016. Okay. This was me again putting the binders together. So this is also looking at what evidence do I have to support every single claim, which is also why I haven't had any lawsuits or charges for false special statements, because they just know. I've been dealing with the system, the courts in Texas since 2000. I don't make false allegations. That's not what I do. And so if I make an allegation, people probably should duck, because there was probably a recording running, a video somewhere. There's probably a documentation. There's going to be some form of evidence 99% of the time. So I just don't make false allegations. They're serious. They destroy lives. And so this document is going over my journey as I was ready to freedom. Realized I was unable to be able to get anything that even remotely looked close to justice, equal protection, and law in Texas. And thinking, you know what, if I got outside of Texas, maybe the Good People Committee were going to show up and be able to help me and my kids, but the worst that never happened. I think what I learned is that this dynamic, this story, my story, is all of our story, all across the country, no matter where you are. Again, things will have different names. They may, things are different casts, basically different parties. There's no variation. Obviously, all of our cases aren't the same, but very, very similar in the themes that are occurring nationwide and even internationally. Start getting into these underlying family issues, child protection issues, domestic violence, coercive control, and all of the above, right? Subject matters we're talking about. I have to apologize because some of you that have been in the battle for a while, you're tracking what I'm saying. Others that maybe you've been in the battle for a while, and I also just go deep into a lot of different dynamics. I hope you can follow me. I hope it's not too much, too confusing. I think that's another reason I haven't done this for a while, because that's a lot of information. It's overwhelming. I may or may not get the whole thing tonight. Also, just kind of see how you guys are doing in terms of sticking with me and us going through it. All right, I'm going to go back in this document, table of contents. Where I got this concept, and again, the individual that was helping me with it is, again, I was looking at a legal program, and one of the things that it showed was like, how do you do a brief? Would be for an appellate court. Saying I was a great student and finished the whole thing, but I knew there was, it's kind of like table of content, statement of jurisdiction, kind of was following that, saying that it's a perfectly put together brief, or close to it. As you will see, again, because I don't know names, I talk about categories. And as I explained before, there's 3 biological parents, and unfortunately, abuse dynamics as defined by law. I didn't create those definitions. I just was able to identify and check the boxes and say, yes, that's what we're talking about. This was over the course of 2016. Now we're in 2024. So yes, there are other things that have been updated and transmitted in different jurisdictions. Stuff that even transmitted while I was in custody. That is all across the country. And again, thank you to those of you that have my evidence and again spoke out and would speak out if I am no longer able to. But this is covering 16 years. I put in here 7 biological parents. I'm seeing Texas Explorer. Can I share it? I think this is a direct question to me right now, live. And sure. I can't really tell what I'm looking at. I saw it come across my screen. You're asking to share the live. Absolutely. And thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. All right. Identified specifically in this document. Again, I'm only speaking to you with things that are date, time, what occurred, if there is a law that was violated, crime of commission or omission. I'm going to get into all those definitions. Then it is mentioned in the document. some evidence exists that we mentioned in this document. But the people that were covered in the evidence that I was going over is our biological parent, abusers, supporters, and co-conspirators. And I don't just which out there you will see in the back of this document. I list all of the elements straight from codes. I understand the elements that need to be met for these particular offenses, crime commission or commission to exist, civil, criminal, constitutional violations. And when you're underground, you don't get to live your life. You got a lot of time to study. All right. So I had here foster parents in 2016. I don't have any direct information about them except their names. I can't say that they harmed or helped. They were actually contacted in Pennsylvania to take my daughter. I was not taken into custody. Actually asked to be and asked the officer of the CYS, CPS in Pennsylvania, look at the medical records I had on site. I actually told the officer, hey, you know what void orders are? He said yes. I said, unfortunately, if you were to take me into custody, the dynamics that you're being told right now, I'm going to go ahead and assert that they're based on void orders. So I think we might talk about the law. If not, I'll let you know about another channel where I explaining law voids and how ultimately if someone tries to enforce orders that are void to any extent or any degree, they could wind up being trespassers of law under color of law. And you're talking about a federal dynamic or law that does not support or preclude to the best of my understanding and knowledge. So all of that said, they did not arrest me. They did take my daughter into custody. And in taking my daughter into custody, there were foster parents. I see you, me too, court. Three, good to see you. Kirsty and also, and I'm going to ask y'all to just chat in the comments and let me know you can still hear me, still see me, and everything's still running okay. And you can still see my screen too, or content. If you get a moment for somebody, throw out a let me know that you can still see my screen. Hello. Okay, good. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That's on my Instagram. Let me go back and I want to check, make sure we're still on YouTube. Anyone on YouTube that can comment in the chat and let me know, can you see me okay? I do know I have stalkers in opposition that check out what I'm doing too, so that could be the other way. I still see my screen, so I feel like it's still there. All right. We're going to go ahead and move to 5 federal law enforcement agencies and our personnel in 2015 and 2017 for help. Okay, great. Thank you so much. You're here just fine. Awesome. Hope that you're tracking and this is not too much. Hopefully it's it. 3 missing and exploited children agencies in 2016. I will say some harmed / they may have removed links. One Secretary General with cozy relationships in courts that sometimes does not always accomplish the help that it intends because of conflict of interest and how funded and how to play nice with the other groups. And so I'll get into that later. Okay, including a certain unnamed number of attorneys, ombudsmen, supervisors, and agents. That was from 2001 to 2016. One state representative, No Harm or Help, 2016. That individual was part of the House of Representatives in Pennsylvania when we made it there. I kind of explained why I was in Pennsylvania before, trying to get help. A Texas attorney that had been the only one to address a couple of the initial judges in our case that are highly protected and political. Never got to him, by the way, unfortunately, before the power was taken. A juvenile detention facility, including a superintendent and probation officer, and a known number of juvenile detention facility officers. That situation is pertaining to my son. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to go into my entire story in this one live, but I'm just kind of giving you all the crux of why a lot of people see that I'm going through a lot, and they're like, how is she so strong? I hate to say this, but the stuff I'm dealing with in 2024, it is radical, it is outrageous, it is unjust, it is painful, it's brutal. At the on Instagram too, so I don't know if you're joining both. But the dynamic of what has occurred over the past 11 plus years, if anything, this just kind of gives the rundown of what I've been dealing with and how long I've been dealing with it, where none of this stuff really surprises me and shocks me anymore. Um, it's disheartening. It's disappointing. It's not shocking. Unfortunately, I have learned that it is more likely people in positions of power are not going to do the right thing. They're not going to tell the truth. They're not going to stand up courageously and in integrity and boldness. I have unfortunately learned over 11 years of personal experience and that of others all across the country. It is more likely than not that they're not going to stand up as the bright shining star that you all are. Again, I got my lights in the background on Instagram, and that they're going to go along to get along. They're going to go with the flow, right? That's what I've learned. And so, as I'm dealing with so many different dynamics that I post about, that I talk about, I'm not saying everybody's corrupt, right? There was a season, and there's definitely phases and stages we go through where the trauma is so bad, we are just yelling and screaming and raging at the world. I absolutely went through that phase and stage as well when it was still new. I'm 11 years in. That doesn't mean I'm numb. It doesn't mean it doesn't bother me the same. It just means I've had to settle in and just trust that this is not an independent, isolated situation that is just mine. I learned and I've understood I'm not alone. I've also learned and understood this is a greater part of the systems that we're dealing with. And so you have to develop coping skills where you can actually process everything, all the hits that keep coming, figure out how to defend yourself, defend your children, work with those that work with you, not give too much energy to those who won't. All these different dynamics, it's what happens after you've been in the battlefield 11 plus years. That part. Kirsty, I see your comment. The Lord is your strength, yet you are a mama that feels deeply, but also fight relentlessly for your children. That part, absolutely. You know me well. Good dear friend since 2015 as we've been in this battle together, spiritual dynamics, the legal, physical, parental, relational, all the dynamics together. Your own story. And if you decide you want to come on later, shoot me a message, let me know. I'm trying to figure out how to bring you up on screen with me. But okay, so we're not going to get into anything. I want to get into the cracks. I know a lot of you are waiting to see it, and or joining us, or joining us to watch the replay at some point. All of it. I love it. Let's see. Oh, two drug traffickers with witness tax in 2013 and 2014, and court admission not denied in 2015. Three mental and behavioral health hospitals in 2014 to 2015. A couple of physicians, 2014 to 2015. Again, this is the content of what I've put together. This is not the totality of everything I've been dealing with. This is just what I put together in this 60-page document. Let's see. One Child Advocacy Center and multiple child protection professionals. Y'all, we were in, I believe my daughter was in Pennsylvania for maybe about 8 days. Just that 8 days. I think when I went back to see how many people were involved with the CYS, with law enforcement, with the courts, I think that was 22 people. So every time there's a new incident, you think that maybe you're dealing with one person, or again, we hear about these family law cases, and we're like, well, who's the dad, right? Or who's the mom? How are they getting such favor? What you have to understand is when these systems break down and one person starts to lie, commit fraud, commit perjury, and the law is not followed, very easily this thing grows out of control. And again, for one incident, let's just say this last incident with my daughter from October 21st to November 6th and beyond, now into court dates, I already know for a fact people that have been involved and have been engaged, you wind up in a situation where now let's add no less than 20 people to the mix, right? That's absolutely what occurs and what happens. Oh no, Me Too Court 383, you're saying my life keeps freezing. Is that live on Instagram or is it my live on YouTube? Which one keeps freezing? Um, to court 383. Is it my Instagram or is it the YouTube that is freezing? I don't know if I can fix it. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. I'm sorry, I don't know how to fix that. Okay, some of the things that I have listed on here is Child Protective Services, social workers, investigators, supervisors, and directors, y'all. Local and state law enforcement, including city police, sheriff's departments, 2004 to 2018, domestic violence organizations and nonprofits, 2013 to 2017. One supervised visitation facility, administrators, and your staff members, 2015. Instagram is freezing. Okay, thank you, Kirsty. I appreciate that. I don't know how to fix that, y'all. Try to keep an eye on it. Definitely feel free if you can join on YouTube and join and watch YouTube. I can try to send that link, meet to court 383. Let me see if I can copy my YouTube link and send it to you to join me there. And maybe that might be a little bit easier. Also on YouTube, you can see the actual screen. All right, I'm pulling up a chat with you. I just sent you the YouTube link. Kirsty, I'm going to do the same thing for you, love. If you're able to join on YouTube, and you said your Facebook was giving you problems, I'm going to go ahead and send you the YouTube link as well. That way you can see the screen. And it didn't go through. I don't know why. I just tried to send you the message. I'm sending it to the other. Okay, wait a minute. Maybe it should work now. Perfect. All right, if you check your account, it should have gone through. Here we go. Oh, wait. I think what I'm doing. Can y'all see my screen right now? Probably. Yes. Um, I gotta get better at this. All right, we're back on the table of contents screen because I think I just opened up messengers. I wasn't trying to do that. Sorry to anyone who might have been in my messenger that I just put on the screen, but I don't think there's anything that in there. Okay, all right, let's see. School district teachers, support staff, administrators, board superintendents, special education, et al., and all others. That means, and personnel, family counseling intern, licensed counselors, and supervisors. There's a family court mediator, a state education agency, a hearing officer. Hold on. Nope. I gotta try to move the document along because you all can't see it till I can move it. Sorry. Okay. Then we went into a CASA agency, private custody evaluator, 2015, CASA agency 2014. Two guarded items, attorney of items, 2016, four public defender, family and dependency court appointed defense attorneys, 2014, 2018. Four county district attorneys, prosecutor offices, five employees or DA investigators from 2014 to 2017. One bar association, 2015, with Real Help. Unlimited number of lawyers, solicitors, that's what they're called in Pennsylvania. One judicial commission, Harbor Help. Actually, I didn't contact them. I was told unhelpful and files would not likely even be opened on judges by a former 10-year state judge, practicing attorney, over 50-year legal professional. Couple court reporters, 2013, 14, and 16. Three court bailiffs and approximately 12 courthouse law enforcement officers, including one law enforcement officer. Alleged messenger from County Courthouse Homeland Security that was there that day. Had witnesses, thank God. Court coordinators, former county court clerk that's now a state district judge, district clerk deputies, supervisors, and a protonary. I can't really pronounce that. Someone that basically works in the courts in Pennsylvania. That's what they're called. 14, I think we're actually closer to about 20 judges now. Again, this hasn't been updated in a while. And then 2 civil, criminal, municipal, and state courthouses and courtroom staff from 2013 to 2016. This is a summary. If at some point I ever need to disclose who might be interested parties, who has had some level of involvement, it is literally over 400 names. And yes, this list at some point were created, right? So again, that it's not harmful. And again, I'm also not saying people are wrong, that they've committed crimes, that they've broken laws. I'm talking about when you look at people in the chain of custody, anything that has happened, how many people have been involved, based on documents, audios, videos. That is what it came out to be and how extensive it's been. So I think when I talk about these issues, experience, expertise, I'm not an expert, I don't testify in court, but I know what I'm talking about. So what I say here is if no comments exist after the description of these involved persons, images of violating constitutional amendments, civil or criminal statutes, codes, policies, procedures, oaths, creeds, and/or laws by commission and/or omission, and therefore must, at least initially, be defended for respondents until production of defense proof. For all public servants or government officials, their violations constitute a criminal abuse of official capacity. As co-conspirators and this law-violating organization are included below. I want to stop right there. For those that work in any aspect of the legal arena, either as attorneys or law enforcement, they understood what I just said. The average person is like, Marlana, speak English, layman's terms, what in the world was all of that? And so I'm going to show you what this document was, is I'm using big words, and I'm not using big words that I don't understand. What I do in this document is the first 30 pages, the date, time, what happened, what occurred, what type of evidence exists. The last 30 pages, I actually created this in a digital format. It's like, what do they call them? Endnotes. Maybe that's the name of it, which means that if you click on a link, I'm going to try it now. No, this is a PDF, so it won't work. If this was a live document, you click on the link and it would take you to the definition. So I'm going to go ahead and try to scroll, and hopefully you're to page 30. Okay, hold on. I'm going to get to page 30. Oh, wait. No, maybe it's not 30. Hold on. Forgive me. 39. My apologies. I'm going to get to page 39 of 60, and you're going to start to see the endnotes, which it says number 1, number 2. Right? So when I mention this word, abuse of official capacity, where did I get that from? I didn't just make it up because it sounded intelligent and professional. No, it's found in the Texas Penal Code, section 39.02. The Penal Code is the criminal code. It says a public servant commits an offense if, with intent to obtain a benefit, or with intent to harm or defraud another, he intentionally or knowingly violates a law relating to the public servant's office or employment, or number 2, misuses government property, services, personnel, or anything of value belonging to the government that is public servant's custody or possession by virtue of the public servant's office or employment. So in Texas, it's criminal. I'm not giving legal advice. I'm not telling anybody how to interpret it. I'm explaining that I absolutely know what is going on, where yes, people are abusing their official capacity, and I am very aware that it is criminal behavior in the state of Texas. All right, number 2, right? This is just explaining general practices or general principles, I should say, of criminal responsibility, chapter 6. This is defining what is culpability, right? A requirement of voluntary act or omission. Hello, I see someone special that has just come into the room. I don't know if I'll say your name unless you want me to. But if you want to drop in the chat or you want me to mention the name of the software that you have, I'd be glad to do a shout out. It is phenomenal. If you don't want to share that, that's okay too, no pressure. But we got phenomenal software that's going to change the game for non-opposing litigants and others. Yeah, to see that heart. So if you want to pop the name in there, I'll shout out. If you don't, that's okay too. I'm going over a 60-page document that outlines 90 crimes and law violations that were committed against my children and I that I was and figure out. And so I'm doing this based on Texas laws as well. Back, so everything that I state in the one paragraph, go to the back, it now gives all the definitions, right? So when I use words like culpability, a voluntary act or omission, a person commits an offense only if he in conduct, including an act, an omission, or possession, right? Possession is a voluntary act. If the possessor knowingly obtains or receives the thing possessed, or is aware of his control of the thing for a sufficient time to prevent him to terminate his control. A person who omits to perform an act does not commit an offense unless a law as defined by section 1.07. So let's talk about requirements. It's powered by Charlie AI. And Monica, thank you for sharing that with us. That people will get in contact with you, that you're comfortable with me sharing. I will definitely put that out there, but phenomenal software. It works magic, y'all. You give it very little facts, it is able to dissect it, and it will pop out codes and statutes. And I understand that it can even, you can tell it a frame of reference or perspective, like it lists on the perspective of opposing counsel or a parent or whatever the case may be. Basically tell it who it's thinking for, and it makes masterpieces happen in terms of legal filings and documents. And so I think I did a good job explaining it. Yay, I see Kim claps. So I hope I did it justice. Again, if you want to come on live and share, feel free. Let me know you want to come on live. But otherwise, I know you're probably pretty busy in the background. But yes, let me know how people can get in touch with you to find out about this phenomenal, revolutionary game-changing software that they can use for their legal work. Definitely let me know that and I'll shout it out. But right now, Legal Aids powered by Charlie AI. Y'all check it out. And again, I also know that parts of it I think are still in development. So if it's not readily available right now, it's coming. So y'all be on the lookout. All right. Good stuff. All right. So I want to just go over some things also. We talk about, people have heard the term negligence, right? Criminal negligence even. And then we're talking about, you hear negligence, you hear misconduct, and you hear criminal behavior or corruption, right? A lot of times what this turns into, you're absolutely very welcome. Thank you. I appreciate you. Veronica, thank you so much. I'm glad that you're here tonight. Is, you start getting into things. Well, let me just read this here. If the definition of an offense does not prescribe a culpable mental state, but one is nevertheless required under subsection, intent, knowledge, or recklessness suffices to establish criminal responsibility. Culpable mental states are classified according to relative degrees from highest to lowest as follows. Is it intentional? Is it knowing? Is it reckless? Is it criminal negligence? Proof of a higher degree of culpability than that charge constitutes proof of the culpability charge. An offense defined by municipal ordinance or by order of a county commissioner's court may not dispense with the requirement of a culpable mental state if the offense is punishable by a fine exceeding the amount authorized in that section. So again, definitions of culpable mental states. A person acts intentionally or with intent with respect to the nature of his conduct or to a result of his conduct when it is his conscious objective or desire to engage in the conduct or cause the result, right? A person acts knowingly or with knowledge with respect to the nature of his conduct or circumstances surrounding his conduct when he is aware of the nature of his conduct or that the circumstances exist. A person acts knowingly or with knowledge with respect to the result of his conduct. when he's aware that his conduct is reasonably certain to cause the result. A person acts recklessly, right? So I'm not going to read through this whole document, but y'all, I just want to encourage you. We don't have to have law degrees to read what does intentional, knowing, reckless, negligent, culpable, mental states mean, right? Many of us have heard of, first degree homicide or first degree murder. Sometimes now dropped down to manslaughter. Right? Let's say there's an accident, someone is killed. They may not charge them with murder. Why? Because maybe it wasn't premeditated, it was an accident, but maybe it was negligent or homicide. Right? Maybe it was manslaughter. They have different degrees, and what's happening is they're looking at what was the mental state, what was the intent, what was the pre-planning, the premeditation of a particular result that we now have to rectify under the system. That's where you start getting into what were they thinking? What did they know? This is why it's also so important as we're going through our cases to keep a good documented trail. And they can gaslight us in court all day long and say, I didn't want to read rambling emails. But here's what I know, especially for detectives and investigators, it's not rambling emails. Like, literally, your job is to pay attention to the information that's communicated to you, especially if it's about the condition, the health, welfare, well-being of a child, why they're not being returned back into the custody of someone that perhaps was engaging in medical neglect, making their medical situation worse, and why they're being kept under medical advice and treatment with a parent that is doing what they're supposed to do, not failing to protect. Right? As law enforcement, it's not an excuse. Once they transmitted to them, specifically saying somebody is coming to you and they're claiming and alleging criminal behavior, right? So I'm the person that's being alleged that I'm sure I've done something wrong. Let me provide you with proof of the other argument, right? That no, I'm not just deciding not to turn a child over. There has been some medical neglect. There has been some alleged strangulation, right? There has been some things noticed on an x-ray that are showing a narrowing in an airway, which is a serious problem, which has been recommended to see a specialist. So there is more going on than just someone who wants to keep kid from dad, right? So what I understand is when I transmit that to a police department, whether they've already decided she is the devil, she's lying, she's just lying, rambling, blah, 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 you know how women do, biases, all this stuff. What I know is if it hits, they were made aware and they chose to ignore it intentionally and knowingly and recklessly with culpability, chose to listen to one party and act on their behalf and chose to ignore the other. They're not immune because they stand in court and say, well, I don't know, she just rambles and goes on and on and on and on and on. Was there a doctor's note attack? I don't know. Maybe, yeah, I guess there was. But, it wasn't important. No, they don't get to do that. Especially if they're in an investigative capacity. You have to look at all the facts. You can't conceal them. You can't hide them. You can't la, 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 la. I don't want to hear them. Well, then you got to get a different job. Right? Because when it gets to the health, safety, well-being, life, and death, predictably, of a child, of an individual, and work in a crimes against person division, you don't get the luxury to say, I don't want to hear it. No, I don't want evidence. I've already decided and I'm going to find the bias that I'm holding to go for that, right? File interference with child custody on his behalf, but even when dad's actually committing it, we're never going to do anything. She's assaulted on camera, we're not entering the home, and he's drunk, we're going to say she entered the home anyways. This is where you're now talking about culpability, intentional, negligent, reckless. You're talking about criminal intent. So, all of that said, I go into some other definitions. Again, people say it's a conspiracy, and they're gaslighted to believe or to make people believe that they're crazy. They're not crazy. Criminal conspiracy is a thing. It's found in the Texas Penal Code, right? A person commits criminal conspiracy if with the intent that a felony be committed. He agrees with one or more persons that they or one or more of them engage in conduct that would constitute offense or one or more of them performs an overact in pursuance of the agreement, right? Well, this is going into explaining what does it look like when someone is engaged in criminal conspiracy. Saying that it's a conspiracy or they are conspiring against me, that's not a bunch of people being extra or being emotional. It's in the text defining crimes that are taking place when one or more get together and say, hey, I don't believe her. Do you believe her? That's not evidence. She's obviously sending us medical records. La, 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 la. I want to hear it because we've already decided she's lying. Counselors submitted a written report to the CPS hotline. A medical doctor reported to the CPS hotline. La, 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 la. We don't ever know who there is in a CPS report. So now, after we've admitted we don't ever know, and it's anonymous, which is not true, then you cannot put an arrest warrant affidavit. Mom makes the claim because it's a coincidence. It's a coincidence that the day she's supposed to return the child, these reports come in, not to mention the fact that they came in from not mom. You can't then take your abuse of power, law enforcement officer, to an affidavit, make the claims to have an excuse not to return the child to dad, and then later claim, well, we don't know who made the reports. If you don't know, then to intentionally say that mom did it, so a judge signs off and says, yeah, get this mom off the street, that criminal behavior, official oppression, conspiracy, not our opinion, not our belief, right? In certain positions, paid by taxpayers for their belief, paid by their honest, legal, ethical work. And if they can't, then perhaps the assumption would be maybe they should be detectives because we can deprive people's rights to freedom. We cannot obstruct active government investigations. We cannot intentionally and knowingly place children and others in harm's way, denying equal protection under law. So if we don't care to read everybody's emails and communications that obviously are clear and have evidence, that we're then responsible to get medical records. We can't just decide, I don't want to, you know what, just grab her off the street, arrest her, throw away the key, we're done with her. It's just a problem. Trying to exercise her rights as a mom because she thinks she matter, and that's harassment. Again, there are legal definitions for harassment under the criminal code. And if I committed harassment, then why wasn't I charged? Right? These are the standards that people are given greater power that they do actually know about, and so yes, have to respect. The average citizen may not know or understand the words that they use flippantly, but law enforcement surely does, and especially if they're getting into positions like sergeant, detective, these other positions where they're not rookies starting their first training day. All right, you know, I can tell already. I've been online and I've been live probably for a couple hours now. We're just scratching the scratch, and so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to probably come back and do another. I'll call it part 3. When we get into some other things, but basically, what have I outlined here? I'm going to tell you these are things that you can look at, different definitions that you want to be able to check out. Right? Criminal conspiracy. One thing they reference, I'll just put this out there: the Seventh Circuit, that the circuit courts of Cook County, Illinois, criminal enterprise, right? And of course, there's case law there talks about that particular case. What happened in that situation? You can check it out. You can see my screen here. This is going into other different codes. I don't just use the words abuse and lightly. Again, I've taken time to study the Texas Family Code, right? What does neglect mean under the Texas Penal Code? It's all right there on page 40 of 6. Interference with emergency request for assistance in a situation. Someone's at home, they're calling 911, the person they're afraid of jacks the phone out of the wall. It's a crime. Yes, that's included in our history. What is dating violence? What does that mean? What does the relationship have to be in order for them to consider it dating violence? And I'm going to go to the laws. People family flippantly. Sometimes, oh, my friends, I like family. Partners, they like family. No, there's legal definitions that say if these particular relationships exist over this period of time, depends on the nature, dating relationship, maybe shared child, and the Texas law, they're considered a family. It does not mean that someone is married, husband and wife. There's definitions for family. There's definitions for everything we're talking about, legality, right? Engaging in organized criminal activity. What does that mean? Right? What is official oppression? A public servant acting under color of his office or employment, right? People throw the word immunity around. But what did that just say? Did it say a regular individual can commit official oppression? No, this is specifically talking about those that are public servants paid by taxpayers under color of law of their office or employment, right? If they intentionally subject another to mistreatment or to arrest, detention, search, seizure, disposition, assessment, or lien that he knows is unlawful, intentionally denies or impedes another, and the exercise or enjoyment of any right. You mean freedom to live and work and breathe and move about the cabin? You mean parental rights? Oh my gosh, yes. Privilege, power, or immunity, knowing their conduct is unlawful. Intentionally subjecting another to sexual harassment or section of public servant acts under color of their office or employment if they act or purport to act in an official capacity or they take advantage of such actual or purported capacity. Wow. But I thought they were all immune. This doesn't seem to indicate that they are. And it specifically is speaking about those in positions of power that normally the public runs around and starts screaming, has immunity, there's nothing we can do. Again, I'm not giving legal advice. I would encourage you all to crack these books and learn the laws of your state and relevant jurisdictions that have power and control over you and those that you love most. Right? We go into Title 18 USC, which is United States Code, Section 242. This is dealing with under color of law, right? This is stuff that, check out the Department of Justice website. It'll tell you what color of law is, and then you might have a different opinion about immunity, alleged in your courts. I'm not saying qualified immunity is not a real thing. Are there workarounds to qualified immunity? Looks like it. Again, this is a Marlana's notes. I did not make this up. Not an attorney, don't play one on TV. This is in the law books. I'll encourage you all to take a look and check them out as well for yourself. Also, this is an older document, so things may have been up. Again, don't go based off of my homework and research. Please definitely do your own. All right, I'm going to go ahead and okay, assault defined. I will stop with this one. This is going to be I'll start pages 42 to 60. All right, so this is talking about a person commits an offense if the person intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly causes bodily injury to another, including the person's spouse. Right? Intentionally or knowingly threatens another with imminent bodily injury, including the person's spouse. Or intentionally or knowingly causes physical contact with another when the person knows or should reasonably believe that the other will regard the contact as offensive or provocative. Y'all, assault contact in Texas can be very minimal. It doesn't mean someone is seriously injured and going to the hospital. If you are having an argument, yelling, disagreeing with someone, and you're just like, you know what, and you just slap their arm. No, they don't have a bruise, but that could still be assault contact because none of us have the right to put our hands on someone else's body in a way that is reasonably offensive. Again, yes, these are my interpretations of the law. I could be wrong. Jail for less, right? These things exist under the laws, but do we understand the laws? Do we take the time to even understand the laws? I'm not encouraging people. Someone's like, boom, someone and did that on their forehead. Could a person file and report an assault contact charge? Yes, they could. Now, aggravated assault, they're hit with a blunt force object or battery, right? There are different definitions. There's always extent levels, degrees. Oftentimes, we as citizens are not actually supposed to be the ones responsible to know what a particular offense is when it happens to us. We know something is wrong. Typically, that's the job of law enforcement or CPS to know, ooh, based on what they've said, based on the codes, laws, statutes, policies, this is what has been violated, this is what needs to be looked into, this is what needs to be investigated, and this is what we need to make a finding and rectification with regards to. Y'all, what I want to encourage someone, and I hope I've encouraged someone to do today, is to check out your local, your state, your federal, your constitutional laws. We're going to come back and we're going to do another, I'll call it part 3. We'll get into some code things about violations of certain court orders and family violence, child abuse, neglect, SA, or abuse, stalking, or trafficking, right? Again, y'all, I did my homework. So nothing that I'm alleging is just off the cuff stuff that I'm making up because it sounds good or intelligent. Repeated violations of certain court orders. What is a 3rd degree felony? Talks about criminal non-support, right? Physical neglect, right? What is physical neglect? How to get into that? Texas Department of Family and Protective Services Handbook 2015, determining neglectful supervision, right? This is where you're failing to protect the child, right? Characterizes placing the child in or failing to remove a child from a situation that a reasonable person would realize requires judgment or actions beyond the child's level of maturity, physical condition, or mental abilities, and that result in bodily injury or substantial risk of immediate harm to the child. Placing a child in or failing to remove a child from a situation in which the child would be exposed to a substantial risk of SA conduct harm to the child, right? It explains it under Texas Department of Family and Protective Services handbook. What are they looking at when they look at neglectful supervision or failure to protect? And so there's many different laws, codes. Harassment, that word that gets thrown around, right? Where mom is trying to exercise her court orders and she's been harassing dad for years because he got custody. No, officer, not called harassment when you're trying to be a parent, right? That is not being an absent parent. That is not being a neglectful parent. It's called parenting, not harassment. But what does that mean? There are elements in here that explain what is harassment. A person commits an offense if with intent to harass, annoy, alarm, abuse, torment, or embarrass another. The person initiates communication, and in the course of the communication makes a comment, request, suggestion, or proposal that's obscene. It threatens in a manner reasonably likely to alarm the person receiving the threat, to inflict bodily injury on the person, or to commit a felony against the person, a member of the person's family. Right? It conveys in a manner reasonably likely to alarm the person receiving the report, a false report, which is known by the conveyor to be false. Right? These are all things that are falling under harassment. Trying to be a parent pursuant to court orders and asking for contact, or how's my child doing, or please check on the status of my child because the other parent won't tell me. Harassment is called parenting. Because again, it goes to intent. The intent is to be able to make contact with your child as a court has deemed legally and lawfully appropriate. Well, then obviously the intent is not for the other things. So, it's also important to know these laws to know, do you have a defense attorney, or can you be empowered with the truth to say, no, here's where I can prove this is what I was actually doing. I'm not doing what you're mischaracterizing and trying to frame my actions as. It's important to know the laws. Okay, I said I was going to stop and then I kept going. So let's see here. Okay, I'm really going to stop it here. We'll pick back up on page 44 of 60. I will show you all that, yes, I did as far as personally. I went through and there was a time, right, of things that went on what kind of evidence do I have? Photographs and video recording, right? Um, if there was police safety welfare checks, right, there's numbers for that in police systems. That means that records exist, audio exists. Uh-oh, the actual evidence. She's not making it up off the cuff and out of, thin air. I'm not, and they know that. Affidavits, emails, audios. What type of evidence exists now in the hands of others across the country? Filed court paperwork, right? Anytime I have blue, oh, there's an email from the father. Policy printout, right? Email chain between the mother and the district clerk supervisor, right? Emails with the police department regarding the crime, the report. What kind of evidence exists? Oh, there's a case number here. Well, that can be pulled up in a system. What are some other things? Oh, there's an email, and then, oh, wow, LAPD incident report, right? There's an audio recording. There's a certified court document. So we're looking at date, time, what types of evidence exist. What do we have here? We've got multiple emails. We got a personnel complaint form, audio recordings, court documents. Email evidence. We got medical records here, right? So if you're looking, every time there is a black bold underline thing, I'm pointing out a particular crime or law violation. So when it says aggravated perjury, right? Engaging in organized criminal activity. These are actual crimes where I've looked at the elements where evidence exists. Possessing a firearm when it's a Class A misdemeanor, right? Someone's not turning over a firearm after a protective order has been issued. That's a crime in the state of Texas. Attempting to evade service. There's things that can be done about that. Everything here is not criminal. Some of the stuff is civil. Again, it was violations of the law to some extent, right? There's court transcripts, right? Certified court documents. Oh, a letter from police, emails, audio recordings, right? This is another police department number. It can be pulled up in the system. All the stuff, governmental records, they can actually be pulled up, right? Audio recordings, audios, more audios, more documents, more audios. By the way, one thing I want to say about audios is, those of y'all that live in California, I'm sorry. California is my home state. It's where I was born and bred. I love California, but as far as being able to obtain evidence, you all don't have the same freedoms and flexibility that we have in states like Texas and Oklahoma, and about half of the other states that are one-party states. What does one-party state mean? One-party state means that you're in a situation where, as long as you are party to a conversation, whether you're letting people know you're recording it or not, you actually have the legal right to record that conversation as long as you're a party. That doesn't mean eavesdropping, doesn't mean wiretapping, where you're listening to other people's conversations. That most of the time in all states and federally is illegal. However, if you're a party to the conversation in Texas and Oklahoma, you just know most people lie for a living, or they try to do the right thing, and as soon as they think they're at risk, they're going to lie and do the wrong thing. You might want to protect yourself, and you might want to record just for a rainy day. Look, people's freedom and children's lives are at stake. So that's why you want to do it, not because you're running around and distrusting of everyone. It's because when you have this level of experience that you never intended to see, that you didn't ask for, that you don't want to live, you just want things to actually be honest and truthful and just. We can live all day long. For some people to get that, for too many, they don't. You just learn to work with the hand that you've been dealt. Or again, it's not even personal, it's systemic. So many of us on social media finish each other's sentences. How do we say, I understand exactly just how you feel, right? Because obviously, isolated incidences happening to just us, they are shared experiences happening to all of us. Same script, different task, various different dynamics, variations, but generally we're talking about the same thing, right? This is, I was going over some history. Where am I looking at all this, right? These are obviously report numbers that when a police department says, oh, no criminal history found, and I'm sitting here notating every single case from what was publicly found on the internet, or transmitted maybe by child's mother number two, that's a CPS counselor and licensed professional counselor supervisor, came after me and thought there was a prize to be had. You know, I don't know how a police department tells me that has no criminal record. Well, it seems to be outlined here. And by the way, if you look at them, they all say convicted, convicted, convicted. Now, are there situations where someone might be charged, but they weren't convicted? Is it treated the same in courts of law, even family court cases? No. If someone's not convicted, a lot of times it's not even admissible evidence. Yes, they were arrested, but they're not convicted. So what is the premise is supposed to be here in the US? Innocent until proven guilty, right? So you can't say, now I get the child because this person was arrested. Yes, it means that you criminally conspired with some folks to deprive that person of their rights and have others act under color of law. Doesn't mean they're actually guilty of what you've accused them of. And by the way, if they have all these rambling emails and medical reports and these crazy things called evidence to prove they were complying with the laws to not be in neglectful supervision or failure to protect, and again, you have a problem, and it looks like we have been able to clearly identify intentional, knowing deprivation of rights, with the rights or the intent to deprive, all these other different things we discussed. All right, I think I stopped on page 43. We will go back, going to entail experiences that occurred in 8 different states and 13 different counties, encompassing 5 different courts. I know that this would actually need to be expanded. I do believe state of Oklahoma is covered in this list. In fact, it is. I know it is. Pretty good. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work. For a lot of us that are actively dealing with trauma, it's very difficult to put something like this together. Just because basically you're reliving it. Every time you're reviewing it, you're going over all the details, you're looking at the documents, you're sitting, you're talking about it. It's traumatizing, triggering, it's difficult. I do believe it's worth it because when you have the confidence to know what you know, I believe we fight differently. And then finally, of course, I talk a lot about my faith. I don't know how people make it through this dynamic without their faith. I'm not talking religion. For me, I'm talking relationship. Jesus Christ, my personal Lord and Savior. People say, Marlana, you're very articulate, you're very educated. What degree, what university did you come from? Y'all, I'm a mom. Again, a mom at 15, 17, 18, 24, and 34. My 5 babies, my Fab 5. I got a GED and finished school at 17 with 2 babies. So I would say it's greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. Even though I face and I fight an army because I don't want to quit and give up on my children, I also believe that I serve a God of justice, right? He sets the captives free, not keep people isolated. I'll talk about my fight to freedom, talk about my justice journey or your justice journey, because I do believe that that is also synonymous with my faith. I don't think it's outside my faith and it's separate. I believe ultimately it all matters as a part of our human experience. So I talked for a long time, did not expect to go live this long. If there was anything that I shared tonight that was helpful to you, that was beneficial, that you have questions about, please let me know. My commitment is the way that people have reached out and have been reaching out for me, my family, my company. I want to continue to reach back. Again, I have a lot of unfinished business, but I promise God, look, if you don't let them take me, you protect me and you provide for me, I will move forward with truth revealed so that justice can be served. And that hopefully, just like the story of Esther, hopefully, just like so many other situations where what the enemy intended for evil, God intended for good to bring about this present result. If my situation and anything I've ever gone through, anything my children have gone through, ultimately uplift and help educate, free, by all means, praise be to God, it was worth it. Now, do I wish for it? Do I want it? Of course not. At the same time, do I trust that God has a plan? He's got a purpose. My other life verse, God causes all things to work together for the good of those who love and are called according to his purposes in Christ Jesus. Yes. And that's how I stay sane and don't crash out every day of the week and twice on Sundays. So with that, y'all, I'm gonna go ahead and shut this down. I actually had my dinner here, thinking I was going to eat. I didn't want to see all of that. So I'm gonna enjoy my dinner. I will tell you that definitely a lot of people ask, how can I help if you need anything? That's why I'm raising funds. I do need to be able to get transcripts. And again, as I'm fighting all these many battles and dealing with all these different dynamics, you know, it takes away from my ability to earn the way that I need to be, pay bills the way that I need to be. Definitely, of course, I've got my GoFundMe's. I will share that. Also have Cash App at hashtag FightToFreedom. Venmo is at FightToFreedom, or I'm sorry, at First Fight to Freedom Family. I do have Chime, I think is the other sign right there, Christopher. Check and see if there's a hyphen. I've just started using Chime, don't really use it often. Of course, there is a way that Zelle can reach me. If you send me a message, I can give you the information. There's parties that will get it to me, and then the other one is SoFi, right? You got SoFi accounts. And also, if you don't necessarily have extra money to give, there's a way that through referral, opening up a simple account takes 3 minutes. It can actually generate money for you and me. So in any way that you would be willing to give, definitely would appreciate it. Any way that you can pray, your comments online, continuing to encourage, support, saying, hey, I see you, I'm with you, you're not alone, you got an army behind you, all of that support, it does uplift me, it does help to keep me going, and I appreciate each and every one of you for it. So with that said, I'm really gonna shut it down this time. It's 9:24. I kind of dread doing these things sometimes because I don't heavily script them, what I'm gonna say, what I'm not gonna say, and I also know anything I say can and will be used against me, whatever. At this stage, in this point in the game, I need my daughter safe. She is not. I need our life back. We don't have it. It's voters administration to be able to move forward for my son. I need to be able to do that and lay him to rest. It's been 8.5 months. I need all of this to end. I don't want to play this out for another 8 years until my daughter is 18. And I'm not giving up. So at this point, I'm making good on the promise that we got on the side of the road 2016. If you protect me, provide for me, we'll move forward. Let truth is revealed and justice can be served. I'm doing the best that I can to honor that now. I hope that it helps one, and definitely know that my prayers, my thoughts, my heart are with all of you. As you continue to fight in your battles, your story is my story is yours. For those of you that have not gone through all of the systemic injustice, but you're still standing and you're supporting us again, thank you. We love you, appreciate you. Hope that you take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you back for part 3 of Community Chat 4. I think I'll do it. I probably need to start writing these down so I can keep track of them, but I'll let y'all know when I'm going to go live again, try to give as much advance notice as possible. Sometimes, again, it feels so very random. With that, y'all have a good night. Talk to you later. Bye.